Okay, this is Jeff Scott, and he joined the Alpena cement plant, Lafarge, in 1996. He was named plant manager in 2019, and he has been part of the cement manufacturing in both the United States and Canada. He was holding diverse roles in both places in manufacturing and corporate support leadership at 5 different cement plants. And a little bit of personal. He grew up in Battle Creek area.
Yep.
Received his degree in chemical engineering from Purdue. And he's been married for over 25 years with 2 adult children. And he's active in community by coaching youth sports and involved in service groups and is a board member for youth hockey.
Yeah, not anymore, but it used to be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so, this is actually the 3rd time I've been stationed here in the Alpena community with the plant. So I've had 3 different jobs at the plant over 20-ish years. So I was in the production group for a while, maybe 20 years ago. My kids were real little. I had a daughter who was in elementary school at Lincoln, so just after Lincoln opened, I think. And then we moved away, and then I came back in 2013 and was part of building the wet gas scrubber at the plant, and then left again, and then came back. It's been over 2 years now. So my wife and I bought a place just down across the street from Rosa's. So we're not in Alpena County. We're just across the county line, but I think you guys count Rosa's as part of your community up here anyway. So yeah, so it's good. It's good. So, I met Florence, so I got to give a presentation to the Lions Club, and I think you asked me if I do something here. And so I'm going to kind of do the same thing. And I don't have slides or any of that stuff, just generally about what's going on at the plant right now. Kind of what's going on in the industry a little bit, and some exciting things that are coming for us. So I think the first thing that's really exciting is we're in a really good market today. So there's a lot of work out there for us, more work in fact than I think we can get everything coordinated to do. So what does that mean? We have our customers have a lot of work in their backlog, right? So a lot of people want to build houses. There's a housing shortage, right? There's a lot of infrastructure work that's out there, and there's going to be even more with the infrastructure package that was just passed. And so there's a lot of work to be done, and of course we're a big part of that work. On the flip side of that, it's hard to get all that work done today because there's not a lot of people. You've heard there's shortage in the marketplace for workers, and especially around drivers. And so in our business, not locally do we have that issue, but our customers really do, because they have to move cement into their facilities by truck. They have to move aggregates like stone and sand into their facilities by truck, and then they deliver concrete by truck, right? And so they need lots of drivers. And so that industry is a little bit bottlenecked today from a lack of drivers. And then second, and I think it's a really interesting thing, is it's the work today. If I go back 20 years ago or 15 years ago or 10, if it rained on a Wednesday and they didn't pour concrete, they worked Saturday. Today's workforce doesn't work Saturday, right? So they lose a whole day. And if you lose a whole day, you lose a whole day, right? So if you have 20 working days in a month and you lose a day, that's a day you lose. And that's 5% of the output you get on the job site. So it's an interesting dynamic. That being said, the plant is sold out, have been sold out the last 3 years. We can make everything that we can make. We'll go into the marketplace today. So we've been working very hard to increase our productivity back to where we were, I would say, pre-recession in 2009. So at that time, we were able to make about 2.4 million tons of cement. And today we're just about 2 million. We have some opportunity. And a lot of that has been driven because we didn't necessarily spend as much money to keep the equipment in as good a shape through the recession. And it takes a long time to catch up when you do that. So in 2005, when Holcim and Lafarge merged, that created a company that's much more financially stable. And since then, we've been spending a lot more money at the plant. And the last 3 years, I've spent almost $25 million each year in capital investment at the plant. So this is exciting, right? And so I've had our newest CEO, Tufik Tabor, and was in the plant earlier this year, and he reconfirmed, I need this plant to do 2.4 million tons, Jeff, and what do you need? So we need a lot of things. So one, we need to reinvest in the plant, which we've been doing. The second thing is that we need to continue to develop the workforce. So most of you who've been around know that Lafarge opened the plant back up in '87. And so you start doing the math, and yeah, that's like 30 some years ago. So all of those initial people that we hired 30 years ago are retiring. Wonderful. They've earned it. It's great. But that's created a large turnover in the plant. In fact, if I looked at a number last week, we have 85 people in the plant with less than 2 years of experience. So we're going through a massive people transition in the plant. It's a good thing, I think, in a number of ways, and it creates its own problems in a number of ways. So why is it good? It's good because I'm a dog owner. Anybody dog owners? We always have two. We have an older dog and a younger dog. And why do we have that? Well, one, the older dog teaches the younger dog how to behave in the house, right? We like that, right? But the second part is that the younger dog makes the older dog young again, right? The older dog starts to play, has a good life, all of those things. And I think that's one good thing that we have at the plant. The older guys want to give their knowledge back to someone, right? They were given it by someone. They'd like to give it back to somebody who cares, right? And so it creates a new energy, I think, sometimes in the plant. And I think the second part is you get youthful energy, right? When you have a younger group. And we have guys as young as 19 or 20 years old that are working at the facility today. So, it's quite a range of age that we have. And so those things are good. The flip side of that is we have a huge learning curve to go through, right? We have a lot of equipment at the plant. And generally speaking, I think it takes about 4 or 5 years for somebody to really understand the entire plant. In our production teams, for sure. And this year we kicked off a program, we call it Shape the Future. And that program is about accelerating our guys through that learning curve, right? So it is, they come in on their own time. We pay them overtime to come in about once a month, and they spend a day doing some in-class learning. And then we go in the field with usually an older craftsman to review the equipment that we're going through. So in some cases, we'll have a 30 or 40-year guy who is teaching guys who've never been in a piece of equipment, this is what's going on, this is how we maintain it, this is what usually breaks, right? And we're trying to accelerate ourselves through that learning curve through that. We're going to spend almost $500,000 between wages and training expenses and whatnot to do that this year. I think it'll be a program we're going to continue. We've gotten huge amount of positive feedback, not just from the guys taking the class, but from the older guys. So back to that, I want to give my knowledge to someone, right? And it's a little bit of recognition when you have an older person who's you say, I think you're the expert at this, George. And George says, well, I'm a little nervous. I said, well, don't be nervous. You've been doing this for 30 years. You just take them in the field and show them what you want. We'll take care of all of the stuff in the background. All you got to do is just share what you know. And so it's been really, really, really positive. So that continues to be sort of the state of the plant. We had a tremendous amount of new regulatory environmental pieces that have come on into play over the last 3 years. So we've gone through a large learning curve on how to operate the plant in a more clean way. So we, maybe 2013, 2014, we put the wet gas scrubber on. That's been in service since then. But we had a regulation that came into play that's reduced the amount of NO2, HCl, and SO2 that we can emit. And so it's been a learning curve to go through that. It's taken us maybe about 18 months to really understand how to operate the equipment in that manner and get the production where we need it to be. So that's been a really exciting piece. It's created some new challenges for us. And so we've had to put in a number of new pieces of technology from an operating side. We have instituted a program we call Kiln and Mill Master. Right, so this is high level control, and we have a young guy in the plant who's really, really good at it to help the operator. So when you have all this equipment to manage and all these parameters to work through, we're using this high level intelligence to try to help us keep everything in line. So we'll never eliminate people from that role, right? All we're doing is it's more like cruise control, right? So the guy's got to focus on the bad weather. When you're driving your car, you take cruise control off in the bad weather because you need to be in control. But we have enough upset operating conditions where the operators need to be in control. But if the other 3 or 4 pieces of equipment can be in cruise control, that's stuff he doesn't have to look at. And so that's been an important piece for us, especially in our ability to operate in these new conditions. One thing that we're crazy excited about is this month, we will start manufacturing type 1L cement. So it's a new product. So why is it important to us? So from our point of view, in our business, CO2 is becoming a bigger and bigger concern. Right? We're a heavy energy user. The process of making cement creates some CO2 from the decarbonation of the limestone that just has no other way to make cement without doing that. So if we can reduce our footprint by doing other things like adding more limestone in the cement, we can really help offset some of those issues. And so we're going to see a 5% reduction in our CO2 footprint starting in December with this new product. And it's been a lot of work to get this through. The thing that's even more interesting about the new product is in the marketplace, we don't have any complaints this year, 0. But the one thing that they always ask for when we talk to our customers is, could your cement set up a little faster and could it bleed a little less? So when you pour concrete, fresh concrete, and you see the water come to the surface, that's called bleed water. And if you get too much of it, it's hard to finish. So a little less of that and set a little faster. In our type 1L, all of the test work we've done, and we've seen a major improvement. In fact, we poured 300 yards of flat work in the plant as a test trial run a couple weeks ago, and it was really good. We're really excited about this product. But we think we're going to have a better product in the marketplace with a lower carbon footprint. So we have announced that to all of our customers. We've gotten almost no pushback at all. Our industry is one of those industries where people are very set in their way, right? So they want what they want and they want what they know, right? And so when we make a big change like this, it's an important thing for us. So it's going to differentiate us a little bit from our customers, right? So it's a greener cement, and we see many communities who are putting in place environmental pieces to their procurement of materials, whether that be concrete or other building materials, right? They want to know how much carbon is in it, and they want to compare that carbon versus somebody else's and say, this solution is X and this solution is Y, and we would like to prefer Y if it's lower in carbon, even if it might cost more. So this is an important piece for us. In fact, we are doing a lot of work with what we call environmental product declaration, and EPD, which basically is like a food label that says this much carbon in the cement that we manufacture, right? And so that is important. And in large cities like Chicago and Detroit, this is becoming a bigger and bigger topic for us, right? They have a lot of infrastructure, so we want to be competitive in those marketplaces. On that note, we have just gotten a permit to be able to use some more alternate fuels, including tires. So this has been a big deal for us. We put in an application 2 years ago in October to the state of Michigan as part of their scrap tire program to try to help the state with one of their biggest issues. So today in the state, we generate about 10 million passenger tires a year. There's a home for about 4 million of them, recycling and whatnot. And then there's about 6 million that need a home. And we want to keep those out of the landfill. And so we said, look, we could probably take about 2 million of those tires. Right? So we needed a little bit of help from their grant piece to make it economicable for us, right? So the fuel itself is, the tires themselves delivered to the plant are about comparable to the solid fuels that we bring in. The problem is that there was not enough justification in making that switch for the capital that we need to invest. So that's about a $7.5 million project. And so we asked the state for some grant funding and we got it. So earlier this year, the state announced that they would match grant funding up to $3 million for us. That was contingent on us getting our permit, and that was contingent on us meeting some economic thresholds when we get ready to do the project. So that way Lafarge will put their $4.5 million in to match those funds. So we've gotten a permit. We just got the permit. So we're really excited about that. Why are we a really good place to deal with tires? So I think it's one of those things where we talk about, people have a vision sometimes about tires and fire and black smoke and all of that stuff, right? So in our process, though, that doesn't exist. So you see, we burn coal and coke today, but there's not black smoke coming out of our stacks because we clean that material. So if you have a tire fire, or you burn one in your backyard, or you watch the news and you see one like the tire fire that's been burning in New Jersey for the last 30 years, right? We don't want them in the landfill and we don't want to burn them like that. So we can do that at the plant. And in 2013, when we installed the wet gas scrubber, that's what it's designed to do, is to clean any flue gas of the materials that come from consuming a tire and getting that energy from that tire. So the sulfur or the carbon that's used in there is completely consumed. The other thing is the steel belting that's in tires is a problem. So when you use, when like the power plant in Hillman is burning tires, they have an issue with the tire wire, right? That's a problem for us. For us, it's not a problem because we need that iron-rich material in our feed. So that just gets consumed and made into clinker. So it actually melts down and becomes a part of the clinker. And we actually need a small amount of iron to help with the manufacturing clinker. It actually controls the color. The more iron it is in there, the darker the cement is. So it's an important piece for us. So we're a really good facility to do that. In the U.S., we have 13 cement plants that we operate. So there are 2 cement plants that don't burn tires because they consume other alternative fuels like plastics and solvents. There's one in New York that doesn't do any alternative fuels, and we were the only one that didn't. All the rest burn tires. We were the last one that didn't burn tires. And so hopefully the economics come in well. We're just reviewing the engineering for that, and we'll start breaking ground, I would imagine, on that project next year. The other concern with tires always is piles. Nobody wants tire piles. I don't want a tire pile. I don't want it at the plant, and I don't want it in my community. Why? Because tires generate mosquitoes and smells and all of that stuff. our program will be completely enclosed. So if you go to Bell Tire in Detroit, right, the largest commercial dealership for tires, and you buy a tire and you give them back theirs, they'll put it in a truck, and that truck will come to the plant in a fully enclosed truck. And then from the back of that truck, we'll set that onto a tipper, and they'll tip that van up, and all the tires will go into a hopper, and they'll be singulated by a machine and put in the kiln. So no tires outside, right? So that's the commitment we made. That was one of the things that we made early on in the grant piece. Our employees wouldn't want that at the plant either. So, you know, they're our first stakeholders. You guys are our second stakeholders. We don't want those. So I think it's a really, really good program for us. It keeps us environmentally friendly. The other thing that's interesting about tires is that there's a certain portion of tires that's considered biomass, and biomass is considered carbon neutral. So about 14% of the fuel in the tires is basically carbon neutral. So it, again, reduces our carbon footprint. So all of those things are a real big positive for us on tires. Well, there's a few other things that come with that permit that may come in the future. Our ability to potentially burn wood waste or some other things that are in that permit that will be nice for us if those markets ever become interesting to from an economic point of view or from a CO2 point of view. So the third thing that was out there, and you may have seen this in the news if you're avid readers of the Alpena news, we applied for a grant called the MARAD grant with the Marine group of the US DOT. So the Marine Administration has port infrastructure money and some matching grant type funds to improve port infrastructure. And so we applied because we have not done any work at the port, at the plant since the 60s. So we're in desperate need of doing some bridging. We've done some bridging, but we have not done some structural work. We have some dock work. We would like to remove the old or portion of the old Wyandotte dock, right? So that's the dock that used to put limestone on the boats. We would like to cut that back because the new boats that are running in the lakes are longer and wider, and they no longer fit in our slips. So, or we have to get very special boats, and those are starting to go away. So to continue to make the plant, keep the plant economically viable, we want to do this project. We today bring in about 600,000 to 700,000 tons of material to the plant. About half of that is fuel, and the other half of that is raw materials that come in by boat. And then we send out 2 million tons of cement by boat. And so the port is a huge deal for us. So that grant we asked for is a 70-30 match. So the government would put, if we get it, we'll put 70% of the funds in there. It's about $3.5 million to match our $1.5 million. And that's about a $5 million total project. Had to be initiated by a public entity. So it was the city of Alpena that actually made the request on our behalf. If we get those funds, which we should know anytime now, we would start that work next year. There are some spawning issues that we have to manage for the dredging. So there's only certain periods of time where you're allowed to do dredging. So I'll have to get a permit from the state and from the Coast Guard and from the U.S. Corps of Engineers and Army Corps of Engineers. And so those will all, hopefully, if we get this, will all be able to be done next fall. So it's exciting for us. We have a pretty good chance at the grant. This is a grant that typically most of the money goes to the ocean seaboard ports. And there's not a lot of money that goes into the Great Lakes, even though it's considered a very important port structure for the U.S. government. One of the sites that has gotten a MARAD grant in the state of Michigan recently was over at Ludington. So the Badger Ferry that ferries cars across Lake Michigan, all of that upgrade that was done a few years ago, that was on a MARAD grant. So this is hopefully we'll get the money because it's an important part of our plant. trying to think if there was anything else that was exciting that's going on. We have, we're in the middle right now of replacing a lot of kiln shell. So if you've been to the plant, the big steel tubes that make the clinker, all of those. So the oldest was built in 1960, and the youngest was built in 1974. And so that steel is starting to get very brittle from age and all the heat cycles. So we're starting to get some cracking. So we have spent this year alone about $6 million in upgrading some of the steel sections of those kilns. We're also did a number of projects over the last couple of years to improve some concrete structures in the plant. Again, in the 50s, 60 years old, the concrete starts to break down a little bit. So we had some floor spans that needed to be repaired. We had a couple of bridges that carried supply lines or power lines that needed to be upgraded. Next year, we are going to be doing some power line work in the plant, and it will be the first time since 2009 we will take the plant power off for a significant amount of time. So probably in the spring, just after the snow melts and we don't have to worry about major freeze, we'll shut down the entire plant and we will replace some power lines. The power poles are in really poor shape. They're wooden power poles and they carry our lines and they need to be replaced. That project alone will probably be about $3.5 to $4 million. And it will be a crazy busy time for us because we don't take the power off very often, right, for the entire plant. So there'll be a lot of electrical maintenance that gets done during that period of time, transformers that'll need to be serviced, switch gear, major switch gear that'll need to be cleaned and put back into service in a proper way. The other thing is our water system, right? So we consume, well, we don't consume, we use quite a lot of water. We take out of the lake and then put back in the lake for closed loop cooling for the power plant and for the cement manufacturing. All of that lines don't go down very often. So this will, again, be another opportunity for us to take those down, do some cleaning, repairs, some valves and stuff in the plant that are a long time coming. A couple of those valves are on lines that are 38 inches in diameter. So these are big, big valves. So the other project that's going on, it's a major infrastructure upgrade for us, is our plant control system. So if you've been to a tour of the plant over the last 20 years, you know, in the main office building, we have a centralized control room. That centralized control room, the operators can start and stop almost all the 8,000 motors that operate in the plant from a button, right? That system was put in service in 98, right? So you start to do the math, that's a long time. So those computers are no longer serviced. In fact, sometimes when we have a problem, we have to go to eBay to buy some parts for those things. So, so we're in the middle of a 5-year process to replace all of that process control equipment. So this is year 3. So next year when we do that piece, which will be a big part of that, will include the powerhouse. So in order to do that upgrade, we need to take the entire powerhouse down, and the plant cannot operate without the powerhouse running. So not only will we do those power lines, but we'll do probably about $2 million worth of computer systems upgrades in the powerhouse to get that up and running. So it's it'll be a busy, busy time. We hired a couple of new people at the plant and some manager roles. And one of them is a gentleman from Lebanon. His name is Mario. And so Mario is going to be running that project. So he's quite excited about that. So, and he was really excited that I found somebody. So one of our community groups, we had a meeting last week with our community advisory board. And Mario was trying to figure out how to get to church. So he goes to the Catholic church. And so one of the ladies says, "Oh, I go to All Saints and you can come with me this weekend." So he was able to get there. He's getting ready to transition his family into town. Maybe one last topic and I'll take any questions you got. We talk about people, so we're bringing some people in. So a new production manager and a new and this new project manager. One of the issues, and I have a couple of young engineers that have just joined us. A young lady out of Marquette, got another gentleman out of Marquette, and I think we're hiring another electrical engineer out of Sault Ste. Marie. So finding places for them to live, it's a big issue, right? Whether it's to rent or to buy. So my production manager has been to about 7 houses, and 3 of them, while he got there, the house sold right out from under him. And then Mario's been working hard to try to find a rental place so that he can get established. One of the things that's interesting, right? So if you read international news, Lebanon is in a really bad situation from hyperinflation, and so he will be able to bring none of his assets. So this bank accounts are frozen. Hyperinflation, they're coming basically with nothing, him and his wife. So he'll have to get reestablished here and do that. He's been with the company for 12 years, so it's great that he can find a home with us, but that plant's all but shut down that we operate in Lebanon. So questions? Any? Yep.
You ship out of the plant by boat, by trail or rail car
and truck, all three. So today we service almost all of the large communities on the lakes by vessels. So from east to west, Cleveland, Toledo, Detroit, Saginaw. Then we get we go all the way to Superior, Duluth. We're in Superior, Wisconsin, I guess is where the terminal is, actually in Wisconsin. Green Bay, Muskegon, St. Joe, Chicago, Milwaukee. So all of those by vessel, right? And that's about 90% of the cement that we ship out. By rail, we go to Madison, Wisconsin, and we go to Columbus, and we have a winter storage facility in Saginaw. It's called Saginaw, we call it Saginaw Flat. It's a flat storage. And we fill that in the winter. It's about 60 or 70,000 tons that we put up in the winter that goes there when the boats are laid up. We also have one in Janesville, Wisconsin, just outside of Madison, that we store cement in the winter. So that's by rail, and then local by truck. So all of the local ready mix by truck. One interesting note, in the state of Michigan last year, we delivered cement to 203 different sites in the state of Michigan. So if all the places that buy our cement, ready mix, all the little communities that have a ready mix company where you call them and they come and pour your sidewalk, or they pour your driveway, or they put your foundation in, 203 different sites in the state of Michigan last year. So, yep.
The boat fleet yours own?
Yeah, so we own 3 vessels that move cement today. Well, we own some more, but they're no longer in service. They're actually parked, and we use them as winter storage. So there's 2 boats that are like that. There's the Crapo, which is in Green Bay, and the Eaglehart, which is in Superior. So it's up in the UP. And so then we also have the SS Alpena, which is the oldest boat that we're operating today. And it's one that the boat nerds love. They always are. Nobody cares what day the first boat goes out of the plant until the Alpena goes out of the plant. So even if it's the 3rd one to go out, it doesn't matter. The season doesn't start until the Alpena leaves, and which she's up for a refit. So we're looking for some capital right now to do an upgrade. So she still burns bunker, and it's a steam driven machine, and we need to, that boiler is in and it's been in service for a long time. It needs to be retrofitted, and so we're looking to do that. And then we run 2 integrated tug barges, the Integrity and the Innovation. So between those 3 boats, they move roughly 2 million tons of cement annually. So.
So you, I assume, work with the college with their concrete program?
Yes, we do.
Talk about that?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So we typically have at least 1 or 2 interns every year from the school. So the concrete program here has been a feeder to the industry for a long time and to the company. I have several people at the plant with degrees from there. My production coordinator was a graduate from there and couldn't get a job locally and went to our plant in Sugar Creek, Missouri before and in Davenport, and then came back. And so we do quite a bit of work with them. This type 1L, this big pour we did, we had the ACC concrete team did some work with us on that project as well, just to get out and feel the concrete and do that work. So we spent a lot of time with them, and they come to the site, and we do a tour with them every year and go through all of the cement manufacturing process. So it's a great thing.
Do you supply material to the military?
Yes, we do. So we are a contractor to the U.S. government in many places. So any concrete that goes into military bases or airstrips and all of that stuff, or all that would be material that we would supply. We do so just in general. In the Great Lakes market region, we have about 1/3 of all the cement that's poured. 1/3 of all the concrete that's poured has our cement in it. So all of those communities that I talked about, from Duluth to Cleveland, from Chicago to the Mackinac Bridge, and all points in between, right? About 1/3 of that business is ours. So.
How many cement plants, yours and others, are around the Great Lakes?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So to start is why are you located where we're located? We're located because of a grade of limestone that we need, right? So the limestone, you can call it high quality, low quality, whatever you want, depends on what you're trying to do with it. For us, that means it's got a sufficient amount of calcium in it and a sufficiently low amount of magnesium in it. So if you were aggregate producer, you might want more magnesium because it makes the stone harder. So that crystalline formation is called dolomite. And the more dolomite that's in the stone, the harder the stone is. And so the better an aggregate it can be. If you are selling chemical grade limestone to the sugar beet industry or to the mills in Chicago for slagging iron, they want really pure calcium. That's the Presqu'île and the calcite quarries north of here have this really ultra pure limestone. Here at the plant, we have a really nice combination of silica and calcium with a very low magnesium content, and it makes it ideal. And this is the only place, this far north in Michigan is the only place that you can make cement like that, right? So there's a plant on the other side of the state, Charlevoix, is a competitor of ours, and the plant here. There used to be a plant down in Dundee, Michigan, which was a Holcim plant many years ago that operated down there. But that's why there were a number of plants up here on this part. We compete with some plants in Ontario. So if you get northeast of Toronto, there's some really good limestone there. So there's 3 or 4 plants. So you have 4 plants in Ontario that we compete with, and they're all on the lake, so they can ship by boat. Then you get south in our marketplace. We own a plant in Paulding, Ohio, which is right across the state line from Fort Wayne, Indiana. So that services sort of that inland region around there. There's one just in the middle of the state, Logansport, Indiana. And there's one in just outside of Chicago, Dixon. And so that'd be most of the cement plants that are in our area. All of the cement, like in North Dakota, South Dakota, eastern part of South Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, all comes either from here or from Missouri. So there's no high quality limestone in those areas. So that's where we.
So you chip just straight limestone?
So only at the Presqu'île plant.
Oh,
So they ship they make about 4 million tons of limestone, and almost all of that goes out by boat to all of the docks from Cleveland to Chicago and all points in between. So they make, so there's a number of lime kilns that are in operation down in the greater Toledo area that service environmental things for lime or the steel industry. And so calcite and Presqu'île Isle quarry they have really high grade limestone. It's almost pure calcium. The crystal is called calcite. So the reason that quarry is calcite is because it's almost a pure calcite crystal that comes from there. That formation called the Rogers City Formation is almost 100% calcium carbonate.
So who is like down in Florida and stuff, they really don't.
So Florida, they mine coral reefs or old coral reefs or what they call marl. It's really young limestone.
Okay.
All right, there are several plants in the Florida area. Where there are 3 really large plants just near Charleston because there's in the ground is what they call marl. So marl is just old reef that's been buried by over time. So it's before it's really consolidated. Yeah. No, it's interesting when you start to look at where the cement industry is. So there's an area in what they call the Lehigh Valley, which is so northwest of Philadelphia. And there's like 9 cement plants in this valley called the Lehigh Valley. And it supplied almost all of the material for the East Coast, right? And it's just where the limestone is really good. We operate a plant there. It's been in service. It's the oldest plant that we have in service in the U.S. It went into service in 1897, right? And our plant here went in service in 1907. So we're not far behind that, but it was a long way back.
Well, you mentioned using coal as,
Mhm.
do you see that source running out anytime soon?
So I don't think it'll run out. I think what will happen in time will be today, majority of what we use for energy is pet coke. So it's the very bottoms out of the refining industry. So you have asphalt, which if you heat up bitumen, it is liquid at temperature, and then when you put it on the ground and make asphalt out of it, it becomes solid, right, with some rock. And then there's a part that's even more solid below that, so that's pet coke. So that was probably 80% of the energy that we use. So I think that those, as time changes, will move, and I think the industry will move more and more to. And I think it'll make more sense for us to consume other materials. So whether that's plastics that can't be recycled, whether that's tires, whether that's other materials like that, I think those things will become the energy source. Today, in many parts of the world, like in Europe, where they don't bury their trash, they use the energy that's in the trash in manufacturing, like cement. We see those plants getting 60 to 70% of their energy from alternative materials. So whether it's construction and demolition waste, whether it's asphalt shingles, whether it's tires or plastics that cannot be recycled. In the US, it's still really cheap to bury trash. And so all of that goes to landfill. and we can't compete with that today. So we had an interesting call with the state representative out of Macomb County, and he was asking, why don't you use these materials? I was like, well, we would love to use those materials, except it costs you $20 a ton to put it in the ground, and it costs you $50 to bring it to us. So there's no economics in that.
I have a granddaughter-in-law who works for a wind turbine company out of Kiln, Ohio.
Okay.
And when I mentioned Lafarge, she said, well, they have contact with Lafarge. Now, do you people do wind turbine?
Yeah, so we do, and we put in the Paulding plant, we put 3 wind turbines up 2 or 3 years ago, and so that's the first wind that we've done in the U.S. We're looking at doing that. We did a I think they call it LiDAR testing for a year out on some of our property to see what value the wind could be. We're evaluating some projects. We're also looking at solar and may do both. So the plant owns about 6,000 acres of property. And so we have a lot of acreage to be able to do either wind or solar on. So we're very interested in that. COVID really slowed us down. We were hot and heavy on that prior to COVID. And then the energy market prices went really low, and now they're sky high again. So I expect that we will be very involved in the next 6 months of looking at some opportunities. It'll be interesting as well with so the infrastructure legislation that went through doesn't have a lot of this piece, but the other package, the Build Back Better package, has a lot of interesting things in it around subsidies or grants or tax credits for doing other things like alternate energy or alternate fuels. So depending on what gets passed there may really change the shape of how we do business. Good question.
Do you have employment services outside of the plant itself? Someone we're interested in working for you.
Yeah, so we have so that's a really good question. So in general, we have about $20 million of labor in the plant. So those would be direct hired people to the plant. And then we hire then probably locally somewhere between 10 and $15 million of contracted services. So that could be hauling materials in and out of the plant. That could be maintenance services for when we are shut down. Like right now, we have a number of contractors in the plant that are, most of them are local. So a lot of what the people that we hire to the plant come from those services. So initially they go to work for a DeVere or for a Force Industrial Service or Meridian contractor, who are all local contractors, and they come to the plant and we get to know them through that piece. The other thing that we're looking to do more of is get involved more with some of the vocational programs. So whether that be the electrical or mechanical welding programs for ACC or for some of the other vocational schools in the area, to have a more direct pipeline. We've even talked about, and we're exploring having internships where these young people can be working at or going to school, and they could come and spend time working with us either during an outage or a period of a number of weeks in the summer or whatever, however their program is situated. We've historically done that with engineering programs. So we hire quite a number of engineers. So I think at the plant we have 14 or 15 degreed engineers at the plant today. So it's almost 10% of my staff. So, we've done that for years where we get them in the summertime and they work for us. And usually, hopefully, they like us and we like them. And at the end of their 4 years, they've done 2 or 3 internships with us, and then we hire them full time. So there's a number of paths like that into the plant. The other thing is that part of our community outreach program, we do a lot of work with the school system, And so we've been in conversation about their vocational programs for high school kids and how can we help direct students towards those, right? So today, many kids who want to go to college, they go to college, they get a degree in teaching or liberal arts or these things, and they're great degrees, but there's such a shortage in the marketplace for mechanics and electricians and whatnot. And I made this pitch when I was in the same role I'm in now. Before was at the Paulding plant, and I was part of a group that talked with the state, because we were having a lot of trouble getting millwrights and electricians in the plant. And I gave a story. So I hired a kid. I'm going to call him a kid. He's 18 years old, right? Out of high school, out of a vocational program. I put him through his millwright certificate. So I paid for his education. And while he was working for me, he made 60 grand. So he did not pay for his education, and he was making 60 grand, right? The shortage that we have in this, and I think to some degree a push maybe from educational, the educational piece or social media or whatever, to not go into these industries. I don't understand that, right? So when you can come out of school and be a teacher, and I think that's a great profession, and make $30,000 a year and have all this debt, or you could go to work for me today, right? Entry level position at the plant's going to make $50,000, right? I pay for if you want to go to school, I'll pay for you to go to school to get your electrical ticket or your mechanical ticket. Yeah. So it's an interesting, we need teachers and we need nurses and we need all of that stuff. I'm not anyone, but there's another path that's there. The other thing that we're quite involved with, and I am actually, we're quite active as a company with, is getting women into some of these programs, right? So we have a handful of female engineers at the plant. They do great work for us, and it's awesome. But they're underrepresented, right, in our group, and not just in the engineering field, but also in the plant itself, right? So we have about 10 ladies that work actually in the field today, right? And that's up, right, to 20 years ago when I was at the plant, there was one, right? So, we would love to have more ladies working for us and trying to find ways to be attractive as an industry for them. I think it can be a bit intimidating, the environment. So it is loud and heavy and all of that stuff, but we have, so much of what we do today is so different than it was 20, 25 years ago, right? We don't expect a man or a woman to lift anything more than 50 pounds by themselves, period, right? We do not want that, because we don't want the back injury or the knee injury or all of that stuff, right? We're trying to eliminate all of that stuff. And so once you start to get past some of those physical limitations, the sky is the limit. So 230 full-time employees is what we're always about 10 to 15 short of that number, but we're hiring to 230 people. And 5 years ago, we were only hiring to about 200. So all of this extra work really increased the headcount at the plant. Just to give you a number, so the total plant will spend right around $100 million. So for energy, raw materials, people, taxes, fuels, all of that stuff. $50 million of that is serviced north of US 10. So north of Midland, $50 million of spend annually. So we are the largest private employer in this part of the state. So any other questions?
Thank you. Very informative.
Well, you're welcome. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast. Yeah. Well, good job on the questions. I enjoyed it. So anytime you guys would like us to stop back and find a topic we can talk about, let us know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very interesting.